Maine residents who hunt will be heading into the woods this Saturday hoping to bag a deer, but there are growing concerns that the meat they harvest will contain toxic chemicals.
Last November, a do not eat advisory was issued for deer harvested in the Fairfield and surrounding communities after several animals tested positive for elevated levels of industrial chemicals known as PFAS. With no testing capability in Maine, backlogs at out-of-state labs are delaying testing results for this year's season. But as News Center Maine's Vivian Lee reports, an in-state lab could be several years from reality.
Maine wildlife biologists took samples from 60 deer in Fairfield and other surrounding communities considered a hotspot for PFAS contamination. Those samples were sent to a lab in Massachusetts in late August, but no results yet.
Unfortunately, nationally, there's a huge backlog of testing results for PFAS, and it's been over 40 days now.
Mark Laddie is a spokesman for the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. A do not eat advisory was issued last year for deer harvested in the Fairfield area after elevated levels were discovered in 8 deer. Laddie says results from a bigger sample of deer along with migration patterns could give biologists new answers.
Once a deer gets away from some of those contaminated sites, is there less PFAS in the system? Does it eventually, work its way out of the system?
The delay, though, is again raising health concerns as deer season gets underway.
Last time around, people had already put the meat in their freezer. They were feeding it to their families, and it come to find out it was contaminated with PFAS.
David Trahan is executive director of the Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine, which represents more than 30,000 sportsmen and women. He's calling for the legislature to fast track the issue.
We have to have our own lab, expedite it, and start testing.
Congress, in the meantime, has yet to approve as much as $8 million in federal earmarks that would establish a first-of-its-kind PFAS research center and lab at the University of Maine in Orono. Experts estimate it could take several years before the lab is up and running. Now, those testing results could be available as soon as next week, and that would give wildlife officials, along with the Maine CDC, a complete picture as to whether another do not eat advisory for harvested deer is warranted. And samples from more than 24 turkeys in the Fairfield area this past spring didn't result in a do not eat advisory, but more testing could take place next year. Vivian Lee, News Center, Maine.
And we'll have more information on PFAS and the state's ongoing investigation into hotspots of contamination on our website and our News Center Maine app.